So recently we had talked about how Lockhart was once again spotted. It was a funny typo because it was Lockhart, but it was spotted in the recently XDK. It's of course the OS provided to developers to create their games for the Xbox platform, which is going to be interesting going into next generation because we expect a system that, while we'll be running, we assume, on the same architecture, RDNA 2, SSD, all of that, it will also be a fair bit weaker than the Xbox Series X overall. It'll probably be closer, I would say, to the Xbox One X overall, but it won't be limited with the terrible CPU in the Xbox One X, and of course the slow mechanical hard drive. And this, of course, is Lockhart, which is going to be, we assume, the cheaper sub 300, maybe 300 even, dollar system that will be closer to the Impulse territory for buying. Now, of course, we saw it was once again shown in the June XDK, and after that, it appears that Tom Warren at The Verge got more information on this system. We're going to go over that. And I wanted to also talk briefly about Microsoft putting out their information for the optimized for Xbox Series X and some of the plans that they have going forward to try to communicate this whole thing that they have going forward, which appears to be I would say a larger family of systems, and trying to communicate that and what we can expect from even some of the games we own now on their next-gen platform. If you guys enjoy the video, though, make sure you like it on the way out. It helps a lot. And subscribe down below if you want to keep up to date on all the next-gen news, especially as we head into July with Microsoft's, I would say, sizable event with some pretty cool games. Anyway, let's go over here. This is the Verge.com, their article they posted up. I will link it down below as well if you would like to look through it. It says the leaked document also mentions a Lockhart profiling mode. Sources familiar with Microsoft's Xbox plans tell The Verge that this special Lockhart mode is part of the Xbox Series X developer kit. The dev kit, codenamed Dante, allows game developers to enable a special Lockhart mode that has a profile of the performance that Microsoft wants to hit with this second console. It is really funny to think about a lot of these code names, whether it's Anaconda or Lockhart or Dante. And you can even see they even put a little anaconda, it seems, a little snake on the Series X board, which will be. I want to see that in person, of course, when we open it up. I liked the Xbox One X, which had a Master Chief riding a scorpion. That was pretty cool, right? With that on there. I like those Easter eggs, Microsoft. So make sure you keep that up, since it's mostly going to be people like me who see the thing anyway for that Easter egg. Anyway, it says we understand that includes 7.5 gigabytes of usable RAM, a slightly underclocked CPU speed, and around 4 teraflops of GPU performance. The Xbox Series X includes 13.5 gigabytes of usable RAM and targets 12 teraflops of GPU performance. So that would mean, and this is interesting, because that would mean that the Xbox Series X appears to have 2.5 gigabytes of RAM dedicated to the OS. I believe on the original Xbox One that had 8 gigabytes, they had 3 gigabytes dedicated to the OS. And then the Xbox One X has 3 gigabytes as well dedicated to it. So if we look at this 7.5 gigabytes of usable RAM, if we say it's the same as the Series X, just to match the OS overall across both platforms there, that means that they would have, what, 10 gigabytes of, I assume, GDDR6 RAM? That is an interesting amount to drop in there. You figure they might have gone with like 12 or something, but they probably don't need as much RAM because this would, of course, be targeting more 1080p or even 1440p. But the reason I thought 12 is because they would maybe get it closer to the Xbox One X, which does have 12, and they have 3 for the OS and then 9 for the games. This will have 7.5 gigabytes of usable RAM for the games, so yeah, that would be a bit less than even the Xbox One X here, but it won't be limited, like I said, by the terrible CPUs and, of course, by the SSD. And it looks like the plan here is that the same dev kit will be used between both systems because they are close enough, of course, even though we're talking about 4 teraflops of GPU performance versus 12, even a little bit more than 12 based on some of the math that's been going around for that. It still will scale because it's pretty much the same in terms of the overall RDNA 2 architecture and probably the exact same CPUs. It just appears that Lockhart will be clocked slightly lower. It probably won't need a faster CPU because it won't have a bottleneck to exist there with 1440p or even 1080p if it's, of course, clocked lower. That also means that they might be able to fashion a smaller heatsink overall and, of course, make a smaller system, which is what I would want. Like, if I was going to get a weaker system, I don't want it to be a tower. I think it'd be really cool if it was a cube, like I said, like the GameCube. They could even maybe flatten it out and make it look closer to the Xbox One X, mostly because I assume the RDNA 2 architecture and the Zen 2 CPUs, while they do get hot, if this is just 4 teraflops straight up with a CPU attached, it probably will be easier to cool overall and maybe have a smaller footprint like that Xbox One X. Wouldn't mind it. So for developers, what will happen here is that profile mode that's been updated will basically change up Dante, that dev kit, so that they can pass their certification checks to make sure that their performance is within the threshold that they are looking for, right? Whether it's frame rate or resolution, holding steady, those kind of things. And of course, there can be some bugs and things that happen and pop up as you change CPU speeds and all of that. And of course, go from a 12 teraflop to a 4 teraflop machine. You never know. Of course, there's a lot of bugs in the first place, but going across platforms like that with those kind of differences can still bring up some problems, but not a bad idea to kind of tackle that here. And I do expect the Xbox Lockhart to be announced probably in the coming weeks, since we're actually seeing it added and people are spotting it in the XDK, seemingly getting developers ready to go for it. Next up, I wanted to go over the optimized for Series X badging that Microsoft appears to be using. This is just marketing, of course, but they want to be able to communicate the abilities, I would say, of the Series X to the general public, and even badge certain games, it appears, that will have full-on optimizations for the Xbox Series X. It even says embrace the full power of the console with games optimized for Xbox Series X. And once again, the idea here, as they say, brand new games built natively for the Xbox Series X, such as Halo Infinite, and then previously released titles in which a developer has enhanced their title using the Xbox Series X development environment to dramatically leverage the power and features Xbox Series X has to offer, like Gears 5. And I like the idea of developers going back. It's probably going to mostly be first-party developers, so like Microsoft Studios going back to update some of the games, right? Now, I do think some third parties will, because let's face it, when we get the Series X, a lot of us are going to just jump around the games to see how load times have improved, for example, or how maybe ray tracing's been implemented, or frame rates gone up, or it's just more steady across the board. That's something we will do. We'll just jump around to games, right? And Microsoft doesn't mind that, because that's really one of the big things about Game Pass is you have a vast selection of games, and you probably will be doing some jumping around anyway. But they did give us a couple of things we can expect, whether it's frame rates, which I really like Microsoft's recent emphasis on frame rates, right? Like they've talked about even 120 frames, and I mean, I could see that with some of these older Xbox One games when this system comes out. Like maybe like think of like Rise. What if they went back and they had a higher resolution mode and they had a better frame rate mode, just as an example for a launch Xbox One title? Maybe even more recent titles as well, you can go back to and see a locked 60 or maybe just 120 frames. That is exciting. I like that. Now, of course, faster load times, and something they can optimize for there is to outright just remove load screens maybe. Because think about this. If you go through a game now that expects to have loading time, there is a loading screen that has to come up, and that still has to have a transition to it and then a transition out. Even if it's fairly quick, it could be a lot better if they eliminate that and it just instantly loads, right? That would be something that could be optimized for the Series X. I don't think things like that are put into the game, like elevator sequences, are going to go away, because those are scripted, of course. But if there is ever a time where a loading screen would pop up and we have to wait for a bar to fill, that could just be probably cut out. That might be something that they would go back and do. But here is at least a setup here to get us started for games that will be Xbox Series X optimized, seemingly at launch. So these are ones we can expect. Of course, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, no surprise there. Bright Memory Infinite, Call of the Sea, Chivalry 2, Chorus, Cyberpunk 2077, Destiny 2, Dirt 5, FIFA 21. Nothing too crazy that really jumps out to me. I was really hoping to see something a bit older, but these are all games that we've pretty much come to expect that would be available from the Series X with these optimizations on launch or close to launch. I think the thing I'm most excited about, or at least interested in, is if Microsoft will go back and do anything with older backwards compatible games. We've seen a little bit already, right? With Final Fantasy 13 as an example when it comes to that game looking significantly better, or Knights of the Old Republic, a game from the original Xbox, looking and running tremendously well on the Xbox One X. I would love to see them go back and get an older game like, you remember Black on the original Xbox? It was a first-person shooter, but even at the time, it looked really, really good. Just something like that. What can they do with that game, right? Or even like the original Fable, bring that up and maybe dress it up. And like there are some cool things they could do with original Xbox or even Xbox 360 games as well. So that's what I would like to see, have those optimized for the Xbox Series X. But let me know what you guys think about this down below. It doesn't seem like we're too far off from the Xbox Lockhart, or the Xbox Series S, being unveiled, as we're getting more and more information leaked out, this time by The Verge and Tom Warren. And then what do you think about the optimized for Xbox Series X? Let me ask you this. What do you think the first backwards compatible game from, not necessarily the Xbox One, but from the Xbox 360 or the original Xbox, which one would you like to see done first for all the features that the Series X can offer, whether it's high frame rates, super high resolution like a 4K, maybe even an 8K of an older game, and of course ray tracing and all of that, fast load times. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.